We are entering number 5 hangar at Dublin Airport, passing a Boeing 747 undergoing a maintenance check. And as we reach the rear of the hangar, we find on the mezzanine floor an aircraft under restoration. The aircraft is a de Havilland DH-84 Dragon named Iolar, and it is a sister ship of the first Aer Lingus aircraft. This is an inner wing with the fabric covering removed, and we can see the internal structure and plywood leading edge. We get a good view here of the twin spar and rib construction of the outer wings. This is an inner wing getting a new fabric covering. The project leader, Johnny Malloy, is here progressing work on the inner wing. This is Brendan O'Donoghue of the Air Corps. Brendan has brought to the project his great carpentry skills and also his great knowledge of wooden aircraft structural repair. It is appropriate that an Air Corps person is involved in the restoration, as the Air Corps were the source of technical staff for the early Aer Lingus flights from Baldown. I wonder who irons the shirts in Johnny's house. We are viewing this video thanks to Bernie Lenihan, who visited number 5 hangar at regular intervals with his video camera. Bernie will now interview Brendan O'Donoghue regarding the aircraft structure.
Could you give us some idea of what the history of this aircraft, or what years it was made in and so on?
Oh yeah, Bernie, this is an old Dragon, the DH-84 Dragon, and it flew in 1936, first flew in 1936, and it was the airliner of the day that time.
Good.
And carried 8 to 10 passengers, heated cockpit or heated cabin, toilet, biplane, two ends.
What type of wood?
And it's all Sitka spruce, British Columbian Sitka spruce.
This is spruce.
Specification D2D 36B and 36A for the spars. The plywood was always all birch plywood.
Yeah.
It's all 3-ply. There was no multi-ply out then. It's all 3-ply used in this one. All the English use 3-ply. And Irish linen cover the wings and adapting for the fuselage. Now, if you just come over here to a wing, I'll show you a wing. Now, just to prove the point, the wing, the date of the wing, the maker stamp and the inspector stamp, you might pick it up there.
This spar was started on the 2nd of October 1934, and I think that the 8th of October maybe 1934, that would be roughly when another inspector came on to it. This is part number, issue number, de Havilland number, those are all drawing numbers. You see, 124 de Havilland. They're all stamps, inspector stamps at the time. Every part of the aircraft is inspected with there's different inspectors' numbers and stamps and one thing and another. There's one part I
Extremely flimsy material, but once they're put together, they become very strong. Now, made up of solid spars, solid routed spars, spindle moulded. They're all spindled out. You can see there they're hollowed out, both sides. That's for lightness and to reduce stress that may be in the wood. They're just left solid where for any junctions that may be required. Solid portions here. Here now is one of the tests we had to do. We had to do different tests on the wood to see that it was okay. Bulbs into the wood to get the moisture content of the wood. And in this case we found that the moisture content on the 6th of the 6th 85 was 12%. That's all recorded now for in our inspection schedule. Damage through handling or one thing or another, maybe the wrong lifting in the wrong manner. 35 or 1936 is all birch plywood.
Yeah.
3-ply. Now at that time the book said 1.5 millimeter, so they were talking in the millimeters then. 1.5 millimeter or 1/16. Now that's all original plywood. As you can see, we're leaving that behind. That's going to be just sandpapered, and we'll leave it behind. Now up here, you see we have renewed all the plywood. Now the reason I had to renew the plywood was that it had the skeleton effect or panting effect. And the only reason I can give you for that is that that did carry 8 to 10 passengers originally. And in my estimation, the reason that we had to it had this panting effect is that there was upholstery inside on the sides, inside on the walls of and the inside panels of the aircraft. As a result of that, the wood could not breathe. Now, in the back of the aircraft, the wood could breathe. It was properly treated inside, but in here, unfortunately, the new fabric, the material, the timber could not breathe. So that's why we've renewed on both sides here now. It'll also add to the strength of the aircraft considerably.
Very good.
Now, I'll have to show you on this, and it's my. I don't know how it got flying, but this carried 8 to 10 people. Now, when I say 8 to 10 people, originally there was a toilet in it. So at a later stage, it removed toilets for a shorter haul and more passengers. If you look at that, Bernie, you'll see now that it's just 3mm plywood, 3mm 3-ply, or in other words, 1/8 of an inch. How that held up 8 people, I do not know. It's a feat of engineering. Now there were seats on that, and there were three-point mounted seats, and how they did not go through it, I do not know. So as you can see, I don't trust it. I'm putting in completely new floor. You can see there where I've just started a new floor. Incidentally, all the glue on this was made, well, it was all made from, it's called casein cement, and that was derived from milk. There was also blood albumin used, and that came from blood from animals. You'll see it in some of the plywood. Now this is all the new type of glue I'm using is resortional resin. It's made by Seba Gaigia, and or Aerodux is the trade name of it. I also use the Aerolite 306. People are more familiar with that. It's used a lot in boats. But this is superb glue, this stuff. It's very dirty, but it's superb glue. The unfortunate thing is it takes nearly 14 days to set under those conditions. Double-shaped white mark. Now that was emergency exit. You can see here a little red tag with a wire out, so you had to pull that to find a way out through it. It's 18 inches on its longest way, and it's on its major axis, and it's 12 inches on its minor axis. Cabin of the engine. Fortunately, it's all seized over now. Oh, there you are now. It's not open. Right into the engine. So, it's hard to believe it. 50 years ago, they had heated cabin.
Here a new floor panel is being made up for the cockpit and forward cabin. How would you like the job of sorting out these flight control cables? The inside structure of the cabin, showing the frames, the new side panels, the new rear floor, the spar, and the window frames. Stripping the old medallion from the rear fuselage. The engine cowlings and fairings. Applying cement to the new floor panel prior to fitting.
How are you here, Con? Mind your eyes now with the house stuff. Back to you a bit, Con. How are we there now?
Well, it's okay with the bottom, but we're a bit off in the hole.
Much.
About a quarter of an inch. Can you do to that now?
There?
Yeah? Very good.
No,
Okay.
Con.
See.
Yeah, there. Strikes me that you're a bit too much that way. No? Which way? That way. How you do it? No, round to do. No? Right, Con, we get that hole.
The tailplane without its fabric covering. These are the de Havilland Gypsy Major engines. They are air-cooled, have 4 cylinders, and are fitted inverted in their engine mountings to allow for ground clearance for the propellers. When a long piece of wood is required, 2 or more pieces are spliced together. Spliced joints are very important, and the length of the splice must be in the correct ratio to the thickness of the wood. Brendan is here making a perfect splice and then clamping and binding the finished joint until the cement is cured. This is the specification of the new fabric material, and you could see it had a strength of 96 pounds per square inch. Fabric strips are being cut here with a serrated scissors, and these strips will be used to reinforce the stitching that goes from the top surface to the bottom surface of the ailerons. You will now see the strips being applied over the stitching. A slight amount of heat is being used here to tension the new fabric covering. This is a completed aileron. Work in progress here on the tail fin. These are some of the control cables we saw earlier in a heap on the workbench. This is the work control office, where all the aircraft's paperwork is kept. Work cards are made out covering the work required on all items removed from the aircraft. Cards also call up items such as engine runs, taxi tests and flight tests. A tail wheel strut awaiting painting. The two 30-gallon fuel tanks are painted and tested and ready for installation. The DH-84 Dragon and the Boeing 747 were both very important aircraft for Marines, and when we see them together in the hangar, it really brings home the major advances in civil aviation engineering and also in the scale of the two aircraft. The fin and tailplane are now fitted to the aircraft, and the tailplane and the DH-84 can be moved up and down at the front from the cockpit to allow for trimming of the aircraft. Now fitted the painted tail strut and wheel assembly. We can now take a peep inside a covered wing. A rudder skeleton after repair. The holes in the green repaired area are for attaching the rudder brackets. The very important and time-consuming task of stitching the fabric on the upper and lower surfaces of the wing is being carried out here by Vinnie Talbot. The rudder operating cables and brackets are now attached to the rudder. The inner and outer wings are having a check fitting prior to recovering. And we can see that the inner wooden structure of the wings are painted in a grey primer. The date is the 3rd of December 1985. This is the engine instrumentation panel for one engine, with the oil pressure gauge and the RPM indicator. It is fitted to the upper cowling where it can be viewed from the cockpit. These are the engine ignition switches. And this is the main flight instrument panel with the airspeed indicator, the artificial horizon, the turn and slip indicator, and the gyro heading indicator. We can see here that the top and bottom of each of the fragile ribs is tied diagonally to the rib on either side. This is to stabilize the ribs during wing recovering. This is an engine carburetor that was removed for internal corrosion inspection. The cockpit is beginning to take shape and is looking well in its new paint scheme. These are the engine control levers, and the large black wheel below is for raising and lowering the leading edge of the tailplane for trimming the aircraft in flight. The green brackets that we see here are fitted to the spars in the fuselage and are the wing attachment points. The upper brackets are also the attachment points for the diagonal struts that take the engine and landing gear loads. This is an aileron operating mechanism in the wing. Here, Con Cronin is working on the bracing cables for the fin and tailplane. The tail of the aircraft looks well, since the rudder and elevators had their new fabric covering. This is the wing structure that supports the engine mountings, and these are the bracing struts that take the landing gear and the engine loads. This is a main landing gear with the brake unit covered at the bottom. And as if by magic, both main landing gear assemblies are now fitted. Connecting control cables in the confined cockpit space